you beautiful biscuits. Happy holidays. Even if you're like, it's too soon to start holidays. No, don't start on that. No, it's never too soon to celebrate holidays. So this is something that I've been thinking about a lot. Really, I don't know since when. Maybe since I had my daughter. Of how to parent when you are yourself a neurodivergent person. And maybe you're parenting neurotypical or neurodivergent kids. But just parenting as a neurodivergent adult can be really difficult, especially for sensory triggers and things. So I didn't really recognize my neurodivergence at all, this is comical, until my oldest son was going through all of his testing and trying to figure out, you know, what delays we could help with and where on the spectrum and everything he was laying and what needed to be done to help him in his bubble be happy and stick to a routine and, you know, all this stuff. And as we were going through it, you know, I had to fill out all this paperwork and we did all these tests. It's been years. It made me recognize just how, like, they ask you the swath of questions, right? You know, and I was like, oh my goodness, I am so there on the spectrum with him. And it let me recognize a lot of, you know, what I hadn't been doing to take care of myself, because I hadn't been recognizing as a parent, as a person, this neurodivergence, right? I've just been burying it and normcoring it and, you know, not paying attention to it. And I have learned to parent my son, who needs kind of a more particular set of parenting styles than maybe just a typical kid that goes through life and, you know, all that. It's taught me then to implement those same kind of routines and rules and structures and flexibility in existing for myself. And it's been really powerful to do that, to be able to be a better mother. Because when I am way overstimulated, when all of my triggers have been set off, like, I'm just not as good a parent, right? No matter how hard I try, if I am not paying attention to the fact that I am not a neurotypical parent parenting my kids, then I'm not going to parent as well. And we flourish in our family life when I'm making sure that I'm also paying attention to how my style of parenting works because of neurodivergence. So yeah, there's such a wide swath of being on the spectrum of what that means to not be like neurotypical. Lots of people are neurodivergent. It can mean all sorts of things. For me, what I have found to be a better parent, and this is universally true, I mean, you don't have to be neurodivergent for this one, but is really pay attention to being overstimulated by whatever things set off your sensory processing issues. Is it sound? Is it being touched out? Is it too many things going on at once? And I've started verbalizing to my kids, you know what? I'm feeling sensory overload right now. We need to just like step back a second. Let's wait a second. And I've been teaching them to recognize that in themselves, which again, any of these parenting tips apply to just any mama. This has just been kind of my journey as a neurodivergent mom of kind of discovering that and realizing how to play to my strengths and not explode out my weaknesses, right? But really communicate with them, because the example we're setting by taking care of ourselves, by expressing our boundaries, expressing our feelings in the moment, even if they're hard and rough, but in constructive ways that little children can understand, is so powerful, because they will mimic and copy us for the way we are behaving. And if we are suppressing our feelings, if we are having big breakdowns and overwhelms and not expressing them, and then just going on as normal, like, oh, I didn't have that explosive upset or whatever, you know, it's like us having a tantrum. You need to recognize that and you need to talk about it. And it's let me not get so overtaxed with stimuli, because when you are a parent, that is so easy to happen, I gotta say. It's also let me recognize, you know, how important it is to have certain routines met for me, to have certain dependability. It's given me a lot more empathy for myself by learning this empathy and understanding for my son and where he's going through and everything. But you really do, first and foremost, have to recognize, you know, like, where are you on the spectrum? What are things that aren't strengths? What are things that are strengths for you? And really learn to adapt and play with those. I think think I'll talk about this more in other videos. I never talk about it particularly. I barely even talk about Abraham anymore and his stuff, because as he's gotten older, I just wanted him to have his own personal space. You know, he doesn't need all of his information spread across the universe, but in like the grand scheme of things, it's been a really interesting journey these last 9 years, because we recognized with my son his neurodivergence really early on, super early on. We were like, something's different here. We didn't know what it was. We didn't have a name for it, but it was definitely something different. And parenting that has taught me so much about being a better mother by paying attention to my cues and weaknesses and strengths, and what triggers upsetting moments for me, you know. I think it can be really powerful to give ourselves grace as mamas, and to realize where we're coming at to our parenting journey. Where are we coming from? You know, because we're all coming with different backgrounds, different traumas, different things we want to mimic in our parenting life. We are coming from different ways of processing how to fit in that box of motherhood, you know? And I think sometimes we don't give ourselves enough time to think about that and to really see what's going to be a powerful, good way to be a good mother without just completely overwhelming who we are as people and how we see the world. Because kids have strong personalities, and it's easy to just focus on them, and then we aren't really giving them as much of our wonderful personalities as we could be if we are also thinking about, oh, you know, like what do we need? Do we need to wear special headphones or earplugs because of sound stimuli? I'm a really sensitive sound issue person. It has really come up recently. I've known this for years, but the sound thing is a really big one for me. And so like in our family, we don't have a lot of toys that make sounds. We have a ton of toys, lots of games. We just don't buy the really loud things, because that just sets off my stress. So I can't process that. It sets me off. You biscuits that have sound sensory issues, you know. So we just like, grandparents will give them toys with make sounds because they know it irritates me, and I literally will just give it away or throw it away. I'm like, nah, no. There's a few things we have in the house that have sounds, like we have robots and stuff that they play with. But I'm very particular, like, guys, you know, kiddos, you know, like this is a boundary for mama's well-being, that we don't have all this really big sound things. And what I discovered in parenting with that is by recognizing that I was actually helping my kids, because it was overstimulating them in different ways if they had access to those toys too. So it wasn't just like, oh, mom needs this. When I am filling up my cup of understanding and empathy towards myself, what I'm learning through that is then how to pick up on all these other cues for my kiddos that they need. I realize that's very vague, isn't it? I was going to come on here and do like a 5-point presentation, but then I thought I would just chat about it, and then in a future video I'll go more like point by point of stuff that I've discovered. I just thought it was a really interesting conversation, because I was talking to some ladies I know, and you know, it's interesting to hear, I don't want to like give away information, it was interesting to hear where they're coming at with their mental health, and you know, people on the spectrum, people not on the spectrum, and how broad that has become, and those definitions. And it was just really interesting. It got me thinking, you know, moms don't talk enough about our mental health, how we're coming for motherhood in that whole concept of spectrum and unique diagnoses. And it's very hard for women to get diagnosed with any kind of spectrum stuff. Extremely difficult, because we mask so well, and also we present differently, so it's just really difficult. You know, women are allowed to speak a tiny bit about postpartum depression, maybe a teeny bit, but that's all. There's nothing else that we're allowed to discuss that affects how we mother and how we parent and how we live, you know. So I thought this was a good one. I'm just going to start this conversation. I want you to tell me, biscuits, in the comments, you know, what are neurodivergent moments you have seen in yourself or your kids? What are things you've discovered about how you parent better when you are tending to what your psychological well-being needs and how you perceive the world, right? That's different and unique for everybody. Okay, biscuits, I am going to go see you over on Patreon, because I love being a part of our self-care community for our primal inner being, where we are getting rascally, getting fun for the holidays, and just having a good time with self-care, being an abundant manifester of happiness in our lives. Oh my goodness. I'm going to see you on Patreon. I can't wait.